everybody, my name is Mr. Green. I am the head of film and media, and I'm also the head of sixth form, and it's my pleasure to talk to you about film studies and why it might be a good option for you. So, what is film studies? Chances are you've never heard of it, or certainly never studied it. So it could be you're thinking, well, what is that? Here's some reasons why you might want to study film. It helps you to develop your analytical skills. I often think of it as being like English literature, but rather than looking at books and analysing books or poems and what the writer was trying to get across, you're looking at films and you're looking at the way that a director tries to get a message across. So it's a very similar principle to English literature. It requires extended writing skills, so it's not an easy option from that point of view. There is quite a lot of writing involved. One of my favourite things about the subject is it's an opportunity to find out about ours and others' cultures, because that's what film is all about, isn't it? It's a message and it's a way of seeing the world, so that's one way of doing it. It helps us develop our practical skills. So there is some elements whereby you get to be creative in FMWs. There's also your NEA, which I'll talk to you about very briefly in a moment, in which you can create and edit your own film. It gives opportunities for discussion and debate. So if you're someone who has good verbal skills, or if you want to develop your verbal and presentation skills, then obviously this is a good subject for you. It helps you to also develop your visual literacy skills, looking at what's on screen and analysing it and thinking, why does it look the way it does? It's an opportunity to demonstrate those creative skills, as I said before. And finally, I believe it's a really fun and engaging course, unlike any other that you might be offered at this level. Okay, so what is the course all about and what will you be working towards? So we work with the Educast exam board, and there are two papers for GCSE film studies. So there's a lot of information there, guys, but essentially component one, so that's paper one if you like, is an hour and a half long, as is the second one, and it's worth 35% of your overall GCSE. So as you can see there, guys, there's three different sections to the paper. So within the first one, there's a US film comparative study. So we look at two American films, and obviously we compare the two, and the way it works is one of the films is from the 1930s through to the 1960s, so obviously sort of a historic one if you like, and then the other one is a little bit more recent, and that's the film that came out between 1961 and 1990, and the various pairs of films that are put together. Okay, so in section A, the first question will be about the first one, and then you'll have another one about the second film, and then the third question within that section you have to compare the two films together. Now you might have noticed that it says about stepped questions. I'll show you what that means in just a moment. And then in section B, you have a short question actually, which is asking you about film development over time. So we in year 10, towards the end of, we'll teach you about the history of film and how we got to the present day, so how we got from early photographs through to things like IMAX and CGI that you see now, and that's what section B is quizzing you on. And then section C is about a US independent film, so it's just one question on that, okay, and you don't have to compare it to anything else. So that's paper one. Paper two, that's a little bit different. Obviously, it's similar in terms of the amount of time, another 90-minute paper, and again, it's worth 35%. So obviously, between the two papers, that's 70% of your overall GCSE. And in this one, you'll be looking at three films from across the globe. So this is what my year 10s are doing currently. So we did it the other way around. They're looking at component two first, and they'll look at component one next year. Okay, and they'll get three questions in this paper. So section A, they'll have one stepped question on one global English language film. In section B, they'll have another question which is on a different film which is not in English. Okay, so a subtitled film. Now that might put you off, but there are some brilliant films that are not in English, and after a while you forget that you're watching a non-English language film. And then the third part, section C of component 2, is a question on contemporary UK film. So, a moment ago I spoke to you about stepped questions, so you might wonder what that is. So here's an example. This is from section A of paper 1. So as I said before, you've got two films to choose from that are kind of side by side. One's from 1930 to 1960 and one from 61 to 90. So this is the first part. So we'll be doing Invasion, of the Body Snatchers from 1956. And what it means by stepped is the questions get gradually harder. So as you can see there, you've got 1A, which is a relatively simple question. Identify one genre convention used in your chosen film. Then you've got B, which is slightly more involved question. So briefly outline why conventions are used in genre films. So again, fairly straightforward. Through to a more essay-style question. So explore how the convention you have identified is used in one sequence from your chosen film. So obviously that requires a little bit more detail. Hence, it's worth 10 marks. So it kind of eases you in before you then write an essay-style answer. Okay, and the final part of your GCSE, worth 30%, is the production, or the NEA. So there's a couple of things you can do here. So you can either create your own extract from a film, so you can actually film it and make it, so it might be an opening scene or a closing scene or an action scene from within the film, or you can write a screenplay of that particular sequence. So you can either film it, make it, or you can sort of plan it in your head as it were and create it as a screenplay. Either way, it's worth 30%. Okay, and then the second part of that is an evaluative analysis of the production that you made. So whether you created the film by obviously going out, planning it, filming it, or whether you wrote the screenplay, you have to kind of reflect on how you did it and the process that you went through, and that's worth 30% of the final qualification. So what films do we study then? This is probably a big question that you've all been wondering since the start. So for component 1, we study the following films. So for section A and B, we look at Invasion of the Body Snatchers and E.T., which I'm sure you've heard of. And in section C, which is the American independent film, we look at the film Juno. Fantastic film. For component 2, we study District 9. So District 9 is the English language foreign film, and that's from South Africa. And then, because we think it works quite well, in section B we study a film called Tsotsi, which is in Afrikaans, but it's also a South African film, and it's quite nice because they both have similar but also contrasting views of what South Africa is, and there's a lot of really interesting contextual stuff that you can study. Okay, so Tsotsi translates as thug in English, and then the English film that we studied, the British film I should say, in section C is Attack the Block, which is always really, really popular with our students. They love that one. So what might a typical lesson look like in film? Well, so what I've got for you here, guys, is just a little starter. So our students have been doing District 9 recently, and we were looking at narratives. So to start the lesson, I just got the students to write a summary of the film. Now this was really useful because it helped them to kind of distill the film down into just a paragraph, and it's a nice visual way of going over the learning and thinking about the film they've just watched, but also creating some revision that they can go back to in the future. Here's an example from a film that we did last week. So it's kind of a typical lesson. We were analysing some of the stills from District 9, so same film, and we were looking at why the director filmed as they did, why he used that particular framing, why he used that mise-en-scène and so on and so forth. So this is just taken from that lesson. As you can see, there's support there for students who perhaps feel less confident with their writing. Obviously you've got the sort of closed stuff on the right hand side there, but also extra challenge for people who feel more confident. And the beauty of this course is that there is something for everybody. In terms of assessments, sometimes you might get a written assessment. I'll show you one of those in just a moment. But we don't always do it like that because film is obviously a very varied subject. So sometimes your assessment might look like this. So we might ask you to produce something visual to show your understanding, and obviously that's what this student has done in this particular assessment here. Typically though, assessments look more like this. So this is from Attack the Block in term 1, where this student was asked how film language is used to create a clear aesthetic in the opening scene of Attack the Block. That's taken directly from the exam. Okay, so even in year 10, students are starting to think about and answer exam questions. So obviously ultimately that's what it's all about. Okay, as you can see, this person is comfortable with writing about it, and because you might not know what aesthetics is to start off with or what film language means, but you soon will. So what skills or qualities should you need to do this subject and be successful in it? Well, you need to be curious about the world around you. This might sound really daft, but have a bit of an interest in films, or at least be open to watching films. If you're thinking, I don't really care about films, I don't like watching films, then obviously this is probably not for you. Okay, a lot of the films really are about the wider world and the debates that each film raises. That's what we want you to engage with. So those people who are prepared to give their views and think a bit more critically about the world around them, you will enjoy this subject. As I said before, I'm not trying to put anyone off, but if you genuinely don't really like watching films, then this is possibly not for you. In terms of careers, a very valid question would be, well, where's film studies going to get me? So here are a few things that it could lead to. Obviously, beyond GCSE film, there is A-level film, okay, which we offer. So hopefully in 3 years' time, when you've completed 9, 10, 11, hopefully you love film, you can take it at the next level too, and hopefully go on to university after that. But what happens after that? Well, you could go into film production, it could link to journalism, editing. Obviously, you get the opportunity to do that with your coursework. TV production, researching, lighting. There's a few things there. I won't read them all out one by one, but there are numerous different careers that film could lead to ultimately if you have a real genuine passion for it. So some questions I get asked quite frequently about film on options evening. Do we just get to watch loads of films? Is it a bit of a soft option? The answer is no. So I understand that people sometimes think that way, but absolutely not, because you have to study 6 films across the 2 years and you have to know them inside out. So obviously that means writing extensively about both films from numerous different perspectives. There are quite a few theories that you need to learn as part of the film studies course, and you need to be able to write in an essay style. As we saw when we looked at the questions that might pop up on the paper, there's 10 markers, there's 14 markers, so you need to be able to write essays and you need to know what you are talking about. So it is not an easy subject. Sometimes analysing what you see on screen takes a bit of time. Once you get it and you understand what you're looking for, it can be really, really enjoyable, but it certainly isn't easy. A further question, as I said before, do I get to make my own film? You have the option to if you want to when you do your NEA. If you're more suited to writing things, then you can take the screenplay option. Okay. Either way, they both require quite extensive research skills. You need to know what you're doing. And finally, if you would like to know anything else about the GCSE film course, then obviously you can come and see me in C11 anytime you want to, or in the sixth form office if I'm there, or you can email me at greenj1@hattonacademy.org.uk, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for watching this presentation.